Hey, everybody. I'm going to read number 30, journal number 30, and the title gives the impression that the topic is Nicolas Cage. And it is, I'm going to talk about Nicolas Cage, but like the heart and soul and like the duodenum of the message, I mean, really down in the guts of the message is Nicolas Cage is just an emblem, right, for society's handling of heroes. Okay, people, not everybody, but huge percentages of culture love a downfall. Just this like tumble down the rocky slope of tragedy and misfortune and turmoil and scandal and hardship, and I just fill in the blank. I mean, we're tumbling down that hill. They love it, right? But I hate that stuff. Like, I don't hate that. I hate tons of things. One of the many things I hate, and it's pretty high on the list though, is this like tabloid, abuse of heroes, because it's not temporary. It's not, well, this week, it's this, but next week back on top, almost never. Okay, if National Enquirer or a social networking site or whatever meme infects somebody, if you put the jester's cap on a recognizable figure, that's grafted in. You can't remove that thing. That is a permanent affliction. Like, ask Nickelback. It's been like decades, and it's still somehow like a punchline. It doesn't make any sense, and so I hate that stuff. And in the late 90s and early 2000s, Nicolas Cage, hard to argue that he wasn't on top of his game. Oh, it was like at that altitude, like the partial pressure of oxygen is getting low. City of Angels, Gone in 60 Seconds, adaptation was amazing. Leaving Las Vegas, Family Man, that might be my favorite, or like The Weatherman actually might be my one. Probably Family Man. All of these were really good though. And then there was a dip, and that dip is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Nicolas Cage. I'm just using him as again, an emblem, a symbol, a representation of what that dip is. The most impressive part, though, about Nicolas Cage climbed out. Like, if you've seen Pig, this is an opinionated statement, but I don't think that's his best performance. And this is much more recent. Most recently is Renfield. It's in theaters now. I have not seen it yet. But okay, I'm going to change the topic for just a second, because Renfield is one of the great literary characters of all time. When I was doing my PhD, I was so sick of science and stats and data collection and analysis. I couldn't stand it. So I mean, I could stand it, but it was just too much, and I had to balance my life. And so I just went through this phase of really going through old fantasy books, old literature in general, really. And I read Dracula 3 times, right? The original Bram Stoker's Dracula. And Renfield was one of the greats, across all genre. I mean, it's the great character for carnivorousness, right? So he would leave these like bowls of sugar out for flies, capture them and feed them to spiders. And then he'd take the spiders and feed them to cats, and then so on, right? And then he would eat the summation of these creatures who had eaten as many previous creatures as they possibly could, absorbing, maximizing one's own life by the absorption of as many other lives as possible. Oh, what architecture of a nutrition plan, for the blood is life, the scripture he was motivated by. And I've loved this character for a really long time, but like in most of the adaptations of this, it's just like, oh, he eats bugs. Like, yeah, okay, he did, but you're kind of cutting him short here on a really like, fascinating nutritional quirk. But I cannot possibly think of anybody who could play this role, Renfield, better than Nicolas Cage at like literally his A+ game. I mean, he's like on top of it again. So with that, I'm going to read number 30, and it is called The Nicolas Cage Principle, from Saturday, June 25th, 2022. Hi, everyone. In the last journal, I talked about loopholes in fiction and how, if my attention snags one while I'm reading or watching something, the story begins to unravel. Perhaps not completely, but enough to make me a paranoid seamster in my own writing. And it's not just plot that I stitch and unstitch and restitch 1,000 times. The sentences themselves undergo far more revision. In part, I treat words like ingredients. Some pair well, others don't, and everyone loves a surprise. But it's also the cadence of the consonants and the labor required of the mouth as I read aloud. If narration is only achievable by an Olympian of glossal gymnastics, I have some editing to do. Lastly, the shape, to quote Verlin Klinkenborg, matters. Prose must be aesthetic on the page. Occasionally, I will decide where a sentence should begin and end before I populate it with words. Then I will revise that sentence over and over and over again until it fits into its allocated space. All of this takes an enormous amount of time, and economic incentives encourage a hastier pace. So sacrifices are made. Discarding quality for quantity is the only way to provide ample sustenance for every audience member at the instant their appetites arise, engorging a different kind of obesity. I know this well in my career as a professor. Each successive semester multiplies my responsibilities, but I'm just a person. I can only do so much. Unless I do a poor job, then I can do much more. The poorer job I do, the more I can take on, more and more, poorer and poorer, year after year. In a way, tenure is a tacit request to surrender the last morsels of integrity to an insatiable economy. I guess that's okay. I don't mind sacrificing quality for a wage, but I refuse to do it in my writing. I refuse to stoop in quality for the sake of hustle in any pursuit of art because of Nicolas Cage. In the 90s and early 2000s, Cage was an A-list actor, not merely on the list. He was setting the curve, like the Hollywood equivalent of a valedictorian. But then he found himself in a difficult situation, the same situation numerous college grads find themselves in, buried beneath an Everest of debt. How we confront such a challenge reveals our character, and Cage's confrontation was a wonder of biology. He revealed himself to be the most industrious organism ever classified by taxonomists. The number of projects he took on must have set records, an impressive feat, movie after movie. Mostly B movies, though, because that's what was available. He didn't have the luxury of waiting. He needed the money, and discarding quality for quantity was the only way to raise it in time. It made me admire Cage more because I know he's still capable of Academy Award performances, just as I can still deliver my best performances in the classroom if given adequate time to prepare. But for me, it matters less. A teacher's reputation is ephemeral. The audience changes biannually. Art is different. The audience stays the same, and a few poor performances sours their perception forever. Cage is now perceived as a B-level actor, and restoration to the A tier is nearly impossible. Or at least that's how I see it. I don't know the specifics of Cage's financial history or film decisions, and I don't really know how Hollywood works. But let's just say the narrative I describe is accurate. We'll refer to it as the Nicolas Cage Principle, NCP. According to the NCP, each stoop in quality truncates one's artistic longevity. Anyone can think up 25 plots in an afternoon. That's the easy part. The difficult part is discarding 24 of them, choosing one, then stitching that one and unstitching and restitching it and over again until arthritis claims my hands and every loophole is cinched tight. Okay, that's number 30. And that's all I have to say. I look forward to Renfield, and I hope you have enjoyed it. And whatever, go enjoy your afternoon, your evening, your lunch, dinner, whatever it is. And I hope that lunch and dinner and everything is like spiders that were fed to cats and up the food chain, and then you eat the peak of the food chain, other than human. All right. Good night, everyone.